Hello, my name is Lacon and welcome to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be buddy reading the Parasol Protectorate series. So I've been wanting to do this for a while. I've just really wanted more excuses to talk about this series because I don't hear people talk about it enough, and it's probably my favorite series. So why not do a super spoilery deep dive buddy read into the series. So the Parasol Protectorate is a 5-book series written by Gail Carriger, and technically there's a series before this and a series after this that are all connected on the same timeline, but we're just going to be focusing on the middle series. You don't have to read. I mean, obviously it's amazing if you read them in the proper order. Like, it just, you see so many like little hints and clues and callbacks, but you don't get confused if you pick up one and not the other. But the middle one, specifically where we're following our main character Alexia Terabody, is my favorite. I'm still on the hunt to find more books like this series. But yeah, so this video is going to be filled with spoilers, and we're going to be reading all of the books in the series, not just the first one. So if you're interested in that, stick around, and we're just going to go ahead and get right into the reading. Before I even get into this, I love this book so much. I pressed play, and like as we were opening up into the first scene of Soulless, I was just like mentally in my head giggling and kicking my feet. It was just, oh, it's so good to be back. I'm not the type of person who does a lot of rereads, so this isn't a feeling I'm used to, but I'm just like, ee. But I love how this book opens. So either you're watching this and you've read all the books, or reading it together, you know, or having fun together, or you've never read them and you don't care about spoilers. So either way, we're gonna dive in. I love how the first scene opens up and like clearly tells you, just gets straight to the point, who our main character is and why they're soulless and what that means for this world. Because like a lot of people in like supernatural like books, a lot of people know what vampires are, a lot of people know what werewolves are, a lot of people know what ghosts are, you know? They kind of have like, they have basic traits that everyone kind of understands and like can get easily on board with. But like our main character, Alexia Terabody, is a preternatural or a soul sucker or soulless, all these things. And like, I have never heard of a preternatural before or a soulless person within like supernatural stuff, but it just dives in with like her meeting a vampire, and then that vampire tries to attack her, and when he touches her, his fangs go away. He becomes human again, essentially. And it just super quickly dives in, tells you what it is, and then like there's just no fuss, no fluff. It's just diving right in. And also, as soon as we meet Lord Macon, which is the love interest, I'm just like, ee. I love him so much. I love them so much. Like, he's a werewolf, and he's the alpha, and he's gruff and tough and kind of, you know, kind of a little bit threatening, especially in this first scene. Not like red flag threatening, but probably a little bit of a red flag threatening. I just see, my eyes are heart-shaped for this man. So if you had asked me if I could tell you everything that happened in these books, I would have, before rereading it, I would have thought I could tell you pretty clearly what happens. Like, I have a lot of memories about all these books, But when I get down to it, like, I don't think I remember as much as I think I thought I did. Like, the mystery that has come up in this first book, as it's happening, it's like, oh, this isn't shocking. This is like, ooh. But also, like, I can't tell you what's gonna happen. So, like, the main mystery so far is new vampires are popping up, and they're seemingly not belonging to any hive, which is like a group of vampires. And that's like just not how they roll. It's like very bureaucratic of how they like create new vampires, specifically because only queens can make vampires. So it's not like in a bunch of other vampire stuff where any vampire can bite someone and turn them into a vampire. So it's very bureaucratic. So essentially these vampires are popping up out of nowhere, and then lone werewolves and lone vampires are going missing. So it's like you have these two things, and it's like, okay, where are these coming from? What's happening with the old ones? How are we getting the new ones? And like, as I'm listening to this, I'm like, oh yeah. I'm remembering, like, it's not like it's a surprise, but it's also not like I remember everything. I don't know. It's very interesting. I don't reread a lot of books, so maybe this is just how it feels to reread a book. Like, I have specific scenes in my head that I remember. And for some reason, I just thought it was more than what it actually is. But I love how the mystery unfolds in these books. Also, the names of everyone in this story. You have Alexia Terabody's friend, Miss Hisselpenny. You have the ball that they were at the very beginning of the scene was Lady Snotgrove's ball. And then later on, there's some other characters that have some fantastic names as well. And so it's just like, yeah. The naming on these characters is just so outrageous, but yet so perfect. It fits it. It doesn't like throw you out of the scene. It just gives you a little chuckle. They just kissed for the first time. Lord Macan and Alexia Terabody. So cute. But also, it comes out of nowhere. What? Like, they're adorable. I love them as a couple. They truly are an OTP. But that kiss, it was a kiss. It wasn't just like a mwah. It was a whole ordeal out in the middle of the street with no lead up at all. It makes me feel like maybe there was like a paragraph that was cut out, because that was just, they're walking down the street and then bam, they're making out. So I got Big Gear right here listening to the book now with me. I've actually been organizing my Lorcana cards. So, oh, excuse me. Excuse me. But yeah, so just organizing trading cards and listening to this book. It's been a wonderful time. Even with Bagheera's butt in the way. The villain of this story, I know that as the story comes on, the villain like sort of isn't just this one person. It becomes a whole group. But right now the villain is just the waxed-faced man is how they describe him, and that is terrifying. Like, I just picture that the horror movie with the like smile guy that just has like the lines and the smile and just a smooth, like, face. Like, that's what I'm picturing. And it is terrifying. I would not want that thing coming at me. Not at all. But, you know, that's just what happens when you're a preternatural. People want to come at you, take you and dissect you. What can we say? As soon as I press record, he comes over here. Okay, so I finished Soulless, and so the big bad was the Hippocrates Club, and I don't know, something about the club being filled with octopuses makes me kind of want to go. It just sounds so cool. Like, there's a mirror that is like that, the frame of the mirror is just a bunch of connected octopuses, and I just want to see what that looks like. Like, it just looks so cool. And I have like some ideas for like my own bathroom that I've gotten from the Hippocrates Club, even though they're the big bads of this book. And they kind of continue, if I'm remembering correctly, they kind of continue being menaces throughout the rest of the books. But when Alexia is captured by the Hippocrates Club, one of the scientists recognizes her, and she's just like talking like normal. She's like, "Oh, hello, how are you doing?" It's so funny. But obviously, Lord Macan comes, rescues them. Well, rescues her with her help after he was also captured. So I don't know if it can truly be that he saved her, but since it was a full moon and he was in werewolf form, you know, it was pretty, he did a lot of biting. He bit through a lot of the enemy. So I don't think Alexia could have done that. But the prologue, or the epilogue, the epilogue where they get married, I kind of wish they would have focused more on the wedding a little bit, and not just like she's getting ready for the wedding happens, and here's the after. The after scene is what you would expect from an after a wedding. It's in a carriage, and it's descriptive, but it's not vulgar. My favorite part about the whole wedding scene is right before she gets married, she goes to this book, the narrator calls him Lord Akildama, but I've always thought I've always known his name as Lord Akildama, so I don't know which one's correct, or even if they're two different ones. I'm pretty sure they're not, because I don't know why you would have two super flamboyant rogue vampires. But right before the wedding, she goes and wakes him up so that way he can see the sunlight without like dying. And it's so sweet. I don't know. I love this book. Obviously, I'm giving it 5 stars. And now it is time for, what's the second book called? We got Soulless. Is it Timeless? No. I mean, we got Timeless, Heartless, Changeless. It's 3 of them. Soulless, obviously. What's the other one? I don't know. Well, it's time for the second book. I'm sure you already realize this, but the second book is Changeless by Gail Carriger. And I love that we start this book off with meeting Channing Channington of the Chesterfield Channings. That is by far the best name in the entire series. Now, granted, when we meet him, he is such a misogynistic asshole. Like, he's no thank you. But as the story goes on, He's great. And especially, we won't be reading it in this video, but his novella where he finds romance is pretty good. So, Channing Channington of the Chesterfield Channings. It's good to be back. And also one thing in this first scene, whenever she does meet him, so Alexia is meeting him and he doesn't realize that she's the new, like, female alpha and, you know, gets his foot stuck in his mouth. And everyone's trying to, like, scramble to, like, keep him from, like, doing something that would, like, Lord Macon would, like, not forgive him for. But as he's, like, as they're talking about how she's so old and, like, oh, she might have a few good years left in her. She's my age. She is in her mid-20s. Sir, that's not old. Like, I get that it's back in that time. People didn't live as long. Like, you know, they're getting shipped off to be married, like, at 15. I can't imagine being my age and being considered, like, or even younger than me, being considered a spinster and, like, put up on the shelf because you're too old. That's one thing I've never understood about history, is how someone who's, like, in their 20s can be considered old and decrepit and bleh. I'm about 4 hours into Changeless, and one thing that I've noticed is, I think I said this before, I don't know if I said it to you or if I said it to my partner, but in the first book, they were calling one of the vampires Akildama, Lord Akildama, but I always called him Lord Akildama. But in this book, they're calling him Lord Akildama. I think that's where I got it from. I just don't remember the first book it being Akildama. But we have Lord Akildama. And what we also have is Lord Macon is gone. He like ran out of the house without telling Alexia, and he's like gone to Scotland. He's gone to take care of business with his pack that he was originally the alpha for, and then like left the pack, challenged the alpha of the Woolsey pack, and became alpha there. He's gone to deal with that, but all of it's tied into the, you know, with the title of the book. They can't change. The supernatural creatures can't change, and it feels like it's like a plague or a weapon that is like causing like certain areas to essentially be like if Alexia's touching every single supernatural in the affected area. So he's going to deal with that, but he left Alexia with all the werewolves, including Channing, and he also left her with instructions to go get a new parasol. It's an ugly parasol, but it's super cool. Like, it has all these, like, hidden compartments for, like, poisons and all this other stuff. And also has, like, steel and wood to, like, you know, defend her from supernatural creatures as well. When we get the umbrella, we meet... What's her name? I can't believe I've forgotten her name. Don't worry, I'm not a fake fan. I promise. Let me see if I can figure out her name. But we're at that Chateau de Poupe. You know, the super fancy hat place. LeFou. Genevieve LeFou. Can't believe I forgot her name. But if this isn't a spoiler for one of the other series, but this character is in the Finishing School series, which is the series that is before Soulless. And in that series, she's a little girl, and now she's an adult, still running around making super cool inventions and things like that. And so I super enjoy her character. There are certain characters that just bring a smile to my face every time they're on the screen. Channing was one of them. Obviously, Lord Macon and Alexia Terabody. Lord Akaldama. Biffy. Lyle. And Genevieve LeFou. I think that's pretty much all the main people. Oh, also Tunstall. I haven't really talked about Tunstall or Biffy in this stuff, but they will become more prominent as the series goes on. But Biffy is essentially Lord Akaldama's, like, favorite claviger or drone. They're not supposed to have favorites, but he's his favorite. And then Tunstall is one of the werewolves' clavigers. And Tunstall is in love with Miss Hisselpenny, which is Alexia's friend. So, they all tie in together. All makes sense, but yeah. So, I'm glad that she's finally here. She's finally in the story because a lot of the scenes that I remember about this book series include her. So, now that she's here, it means we can get into the stuff that I fully remember, which is very exciting. But I don't fully remember everything that happened with Lord Macon and his last pack, I remember some of why he left and also some of why he challenged and became the alpha of the London pack, but I don't remember everything. So it's going to be really fun and exciting to, like, get a refresher on all that and remember everything that's going on. We're in Scotland now, and we're getting little hints of discontent within his old pack, Lord Macon's old pack. And we've met his great-great-great-granddaughter, Sitay, which Sitay is in the Finishing School series, just like Genevieve LeFou or Madame LeFou. So it's nice to see her. I liked her in that series, in the Finishing School series. So, like, there's lots of Easter eggs throughout, especially if you read the series, the Finishing School series, the Parasol Protectorate series, and then I don't know what the last one's called, but that series as well. If you follow them all the way through, it is very satisfying. But it's not confusing. Like, if you hadn't have picked up the Finishing School series before reading this one, you wouldn't be confused about who Sitay is, you know? Gail Carriger explains it all really well, and, like, it's just, like, a fun little, like, hey, I know who you are. But within the story, someone's trying to murder Alexia Terabody, which, you know, when are they not? His old pack is not happy that he's here, or at least majority of them are not happy that he's back. So it's interesting to see how they're gonna figure this stuff out, because I think I know who it is, and, like, I think I know what's happening, but I'm not for certain. But what I am certain of is everyone is overdramatic, melodramatic, especially Miss Hisselpenny and Tunstall. Them, like, they're like, oh, I'm in love with each other, but we can't be together. We're like Romeo and Juliet. But Miss Hisselpenny is engaged to someone else. So it's melodrama. It's a Victorian melodrama, and I love it. Give me more, please. I finished Changeless. The end of this book is so heartbreaking. I cried the first time, and I didn't full out cry this time, but I did tear up. Like, I know it's gonna work out, but, like, it's just awful. So we figured out why they weren't able to change, and it was the mummy that the Scotland pack had brought back with them. It was actually a preternatural who was mummified, and because of that, its like powers were able to like expand an area and not just like when they're touched, which is why Egypt, they said it before a little bit, but they didn't know why, but it's why in Egypt, like all of Egypt is like supernatural free, because like it's just a permanent cursed zone. So they figured that out. They destroyed the body, which is really sad. Like, the first time I read this and they were talking about having an unwrapping party where they were gonna unwrap the mummy and like, you know, make it a party and like essentially destroy history and disrupt these people's burial grounds, essentially. But I remember the first time I read that, I looked it up, and that's like a real thing that would happen during Victorian times. They would have unwrapping parties for mummies, you know? Hey, I just stole this mummy out of its tomb. Come over, we're gonna go unwrap it. It's gonna be fun. Like, that's just awful. So they figured that out, and they also figured out who was trying to kill Alexia. Well, no. Sort of, but no. The person who tried to poison her, we still don't know who that is. I mean, I think I remember who it is, but the story hasn't told us who it is. The person who pushed her out off the dirigible and like tried to shoot at her and things like that, they weren't actually aimed at her. They were aimed at Madame LeFou. So, and it was the Alexia's maid, and she was doing it because she was a spy for the Countess Nadeshti, the queen vampire of the London area, and hoping that she could, you know, become a vampire herself. And she accidentally dies, not on purpose, and then she becomes a ghost. So she could have been a vampire, but she wasn't. That's one thing, like, in this world, if I, like, died and I became a vampire, I'd be like, oh, so you're telling me I could have lived forever? You're telling me I could potentially read every book ever written? Or I could create all the art projects I have in my head, but instead I didn't think I could? Or they say that, like, the delicate sensibilities of the female means that, like, they didn't even want to try. I'd take offense. Be like, wow, rude. Could have done it. And then also, Sete gets bitten by Lord Macon, and it is awful. Like, how they metamorphose new werewolves is like absolutely horrifying. They like chew on their neck until they die, and then they lick it so all of their werewolf saliva is in there, and then they just hope. But Sete was able to become an alpha, but still, like, it was describing it, and it's not like super gruesome, but still, like, it's like very easy to picture, and I wouldn't want to picture that. Especially because he did it like as they were all eating. They were all sitting around the dinner table, and he's just like, okay, it's time. Ah! Like, okay. Thank you for that. There is now extra decor on the table that should never be on a table while we eat. And then we finally get to the heartbreaking part. Alexia is pregnant, and Lord Macon does not believe it's his, which makes sense because, you know, werewolves are supposed to be dead. They've never been able to have kids before. And his thing is, we just say that I'm human when you're touching me, but I'm not actually human. Like, I've been dead for hundreds of years. So, like, it can't possibly happen. But we know that it's obviously his. And Alexia knows. Madame LeFou knows. But no one else believes her. Lord Macon casts her out and sends her away. And it's just so sad. Like, she's just, like, for all of this, like, for majority of the second book and all of the first book, she's been this strong, like, what are you doing? Don't be ridiculous. Like, she's been very, like, strong and firm and, like, just assertive and, like, a woman that doesn't seem like much can really affect her. But then she has the person that she loves not believing her when she says this is yours. And instead that person is, like, angry and spitting vile words out at her and, like, destroying things when it's clear that he kind of wants to be destroying her. It's just so sad. Like, she's just so, she becomes a shell of herself for this last, like, the last, like, 10 minutes of the book. So we gotta instantly go into the next book. I'm pretty sure the next one is Heartless, which would make sense. I'm pretty sure the next one's Heartless. So that way we can get back into this and they can fix this issue and resolve it, because I don't want to be in this emotion anymore. I want them to be together. Okay, so the third book is Blameless, not Heartless. Am I ever gonna get the title of these books correct? Probably not. I'm not a true fan. But Alexia has been cast out. She's living with her family. But then they found out that she was pregnant. And they assume that it's not Lord Macon's. So she's been cast out again. And she goes to stay with Lord Aquadama. But Lord Aquadama isn't there. He leaves, like, a cryptic little message on the cat's collar, but he's, like, gone, which is weird because, like, vampires can't just, like, up and leave. They have, like, tethers to, like, home bases, essentially, and robes can go a little bit further, but it's still, like, it's kind of like bees, you know? They have their hive, and then they can swarm to go somewhere else, but swarming's, like, a big deal. So he's gone. We don't know where he is. And so Alexia's like, well, I guess I'm gonna go see, like, Madame LeFou and see if we can figure out the secret message. And on the way, she gets attacked by ladybugs. Killer robotic ladybugs. This scene is one that's burned in here, because it just seems so funny to me. Her, like, trying to whack these robotic ladybugs, and then, like, she captures one in a box, and that thing is going crazy trying to get out, and she's just casually, like, hanging out with this, like, vibrating hat box. Also, I'm picturing these ladybugs to be, like, hand size, like, pretty big ladybugs. So, you know, they could be a cute little pet, a cute little accessory. Lord Macon is distraught. He's been drinking formaldehyde, which is nasty. He's been drinking formaldehyde so he can get drunk, because it takes a lot for a werewolf to get drunk. And he's just so pathetic, but he kind of deserves it. He deserves to be a little bit miserable for what he's putting Alexia through, especially because now that, like, it's been spread throughout, like, gossip columns that, like, she's been cast out and she's pregnant, and everyone knows werewolves can't have babies. We're still not out of the despair, but Alexia has a small group of people that believe her, and that's all we need, you know. So we're a good ways into Blameless now, and we now know where we've fled from England to. It's Italy, yay! With the where the religious zealots, essentially, who are super against the supernatural and hunt the supernatural, that's where their headquarters is. So Alexia is pretty much like, the people who know the most about preternaturals and essentially have a way to prove that she was faithful and this is actually Lord Macon's child, it's gonna be them. So they've traveled to Italy, and it was not a smooth sailing trip. They've met some other scientists. They've met the scientist who created the exploding ladybugs, but apparently they're not meant to explode. They're just meant to be cute little ladybugs that serve tea. And then they've been chased by drones, and we realize that Flute might be kind of a secret, weapon. He might be kind of cool. He has some sundowner weapons, which is guns that are lethal enough to kill supernatural creatures. And not many people have those. You have to have a specific license to do those. So he's just silently standing in the back. But he has a lot of power. They finally made it to Italy, and they got a warm welcome by the Templars. And by warm welcome, I mean they were injected with some sort of drug that put them out for a long time. It was 3 days that she was sleeping, and then when she wakes up, she's in this ugly nightgown, and she goes out to eat breakfast with Flute and Madame LeFou, and they're also not in their normal clothes, but they're surrounded by monks who aren't speaking, and they refuse to sit next to Alexia. So, yeah. And then on the other side, Lord Macon is finally sobering up. He's drank all the formaldehyde, so he can't get drunk anymore, and he's finally admitting that he probably made a huge mistake. Which, yeah, he did. This book is just filled with sadness. So, the potentate, one of the Rove vampires who didn't necessarily like Alexia that much, set out an order to kill Alexia. And Biffy, Lord Akeldama's favorite drone, figured that out, tried to get the information back to Lord Akeldama. He got kidnapped and stuck in a ball under the Thames. But Lord Macon and Lyle rescued him. But in that rescue, they had to either let him die or transform him into a werewolf. So they attempted metamorphosis and they succeeded, but now Biffy's realized what's happened, and he's just crying, and I can't imagine having this close connection with someone, and your choice is, I want to try to become a vampire, and then because the option is to either let you die or try to metamorphose you into a werewolf, and they choose that against your will, and you succeed. So that means not only your consent was taken away from the transformation, but also that means you can no longer truly interact with the person you had chosen to devote your life to, because you now have a new alpha. And the fact that since he did survive metamorphosis means that he would have survived being turned into a vampire. It's just so sad. Oh, poor Biffy. Poor Biffy. But now that they've realized that that's what he was trying to get, and that's what the potentate was trying to do, was trying to kill Alexia, Lord Macon is now going to Italy to save his wife. He's also printed a retraction in the newspaper, and Alexia's read it, and she feels pretty happy about that. Her spirits are slightly lifted, so at least we have that little bit. But overall, this book is just hitting us wham after wham after wham of just sadness. Also, there's a mystery man. There's a mystery man helping Alexia, and we don't know who he is. And we know it's not Lord Macon, because he just left. But this mystery man has been there almost the entire time that they've been there. So, I'm pretty sure I remember who it is, but I don't know if I do. So, we've finished Blameless, and it was good. I don't know if this is my favorite book out of the series, but it was good. The mystery man was Channing Channington, the Chesterfield Channings, sent by Lord Macon to protect Alexia. That's who we were kind of suspecting it was, because he had sent Channing off and refused to tell anyone why when he was drunk. Alexia had been... The Templars were starting to get more aggressive with her, especially once they found out she was pregnant. And so, this big group come in to save her. We had Channing, Madame LeFou, Flute, the Ladybug scientist, and then a bunch of vampires. But the vampires weren't there to save her. The vampires were there to kill everyone, take Alexia, and kill her. So, luckily the vampires didn't get to do that, but, like, they waited until night so they could use the vampires wanting to kill everything as a way to get through. Alexia and Lord Macon finally reunite, and they don't have, like, an actual conversation, like, hey, what you did really hurt me, like, that's not okay, and then, like, they didn't properly talk out their emotions of what had happened and essentially why they were apart the entire book. They just were kind of like they had already forgiven each other off page, like, by themselves. And so once they both came around and realized that the other one was okay with them being back together, like, Lord Macon just goes straight back to trying to kiss her and, like, just, you know, do marital duties and things like that, which it's like, okay, I get that you're, like, obsessed with your wife, which is great. But you should also probably have a conversation, because I'm sure being stranded and abandoned and kicked out and then chased and kidnapped while people are still trying to kill her was very traumatizing for your pregnant wife. Possibly. He groveled in public to the paper saying that he was stupid and, like, obviously the baby's his and all this stuff. But he didn't grovel in person, and he didn't, like, really talk to her about it. So, I don't know. But we found out that Alexia's dad was created in a preternatural breeding program started by the Templars. So, that's fun. And then we have Biffy. So sad. When Lord Akadama, like, comes back, talks to Lyle, and Biffy's right there, and they both know, like, okay, Biffy's not his anymore, but, like, you can see the pain and hurt, and he's trying to keep himself composed, but it's, like, still seeping through, and it's just sad. It's sad. Yeah, I guess it makes sense that this book might not be my favorite when we had Lord Akadama absent throughout the entire thing. We had Lord Macon. He was in the book, but, like, he was kind of absent through the entire thing. And then everyone was just kind of separated. Maybe this whole group works well together as a group. But we have 2 more books. We have Heartless and then Timeless. let's get to reading. Okay, it's been a little bit. Not that you would be able to tell, but I don't know if I ever started talking about Heartless, the fourth book in this series. I don't know if I started talking about it or if I just started reading it, because it's been a few days, and it's actually been like a week. Not just a few days, it's been a week. But I couldn't film. All I could do was listen to the book in like short bursts here and there, because my bearded dragon died. Ted Cooper. His name was Ted Cooper. I've had him since 2017. I don't want to get into it. But obviously I wasn't. It's a little bit better now, but I wasn't in the mood to like be talking about a book in like in a fun and exciting manner. I wasn't really interested in like talking in general. And the only reason I kept listening to the book in that moment instead of just like completely putting it down is because like I had a hold on it, and if I didn't read it right then, I'd have to wait like 2 weeks before I could read it again. So I read it, I listened to it, but I couldn't bring myself to update. So I'm so sorry, but I'll be talking about it now. So in Heartless, Alexia Terabody is very, very pregnant. Very pregnant. I think it says like 8 months, very, very far along. And people are trying to kill her still. The vampires are still trying to kill her. But they come up with a solution to get them to stop attacking her. And it's essentially they will put their baby up for adoption, and Lord Aquildama will adopt Alexia and Lord Macan's baby.
So then that way, legally, on paper, this baby that the vampires don't want to exist is being raised and kind of controlled by a vampire. But in actuality of how it's working out is it's just on paper. Alexia and Lord Macon are still like, they move in right beside Lord Aquadama, and technically they move into one of his closets secretly. So like they're still gonna raise the baby. They're still gonna keep the baby. It's just like on paper, Lord Aquadama is the baby's adopted father. So that's how they've come up with keeping Alexia alive and keeping the vampires from trying to murder her every 2 seconds. But then we also have a ghost comes in and tells Alexia, hey, someone's trying to kill the queen. You need to put a stop to it. And so obviously they assume they're talking about the Queen of England. And so she digs more into the last time the queen was almost assassinated, or there was an attempt on the queen's life with the Wolsey pack. So she dives more into that. She creates Parasol Protectorate group. Miss Hisselpenny is the first covert agent in the group with the name Puff Bonnet. And Alexia's nickname is Ruffled Parasol. And so we finally get the series title name, the Parasol Protectorate. It's all coming together. But then it turns out that actually the queen that's in danger is Count Nodishty, the vampire queen. And she's in danger by Madame LeFou. Madame LeFou has built a giant automaton octopus with like 8 tentacles, some that spew out fire, some that spew out wooden stakes, others that spew out acid, all deadly tentacles. And she's going to try to end the vampire queen's life because obviously the French maid from like the second book was Madame LeFou's like one of her loves. And also the French maid was Quenelle, Madame LeFou's son, his like biological mother. And because of that, and because she had died, the French maid had died, Count Nodishty and the vampires kidnapped Quenelle, Madame LeFou's son, even though it's technically because in the French maid's will, it said, y'all take care of my son. So they kidnapped Madame LeFou's son because, they don't want him, but, if he's theirs, he might as well take him. So Madame LeFou is angry about the death, angry about how they turned the French maid against her. I can't remember her name. And also very angry about the kidnapping. So she gets the giant octopus to go destroy them. We also discover that Alexia's sister, the one that went to her with Scotland, who's just been kind of like nasty, and like she assumed she was nasty in like a bitter, like superficial way. She was actually like nasty in like a conniving, evil way. She's been working with the vampires, and she's been like essentially allowing them to feed on her. And I don't know if she's officially a drone or if she's becoming a drone. So that's not fun. And then all while this is happening, we have the baby. The unborn baby, Alexia's baby. And during this final battle, essentially, like this is the most like action-packed that all of these books have been in. Like this is the most action within like these last like 2 hours of the book. It's like, oh my goodness, so much is going on. We have the octopus. It's full moon, so the vampires are hosting a party. The octopus is coming. to get rid of Count Nodishty. Alexia gets into a dirigible that Lord Akodama has, even though he can't fly in a dirigible because he's a vampire. She gets in a dirigible to race, to beat the octopus, to warn the queen. But they don't really listen to her, you know? And so the octopus, like, literally destroys the house. Like, the house is, like, crumbled. Nothing left standing. So the vampires swarm, which we had seen Lord Akodama swarm in the last book. And when he finished swarming, he was, like, gone for a couple months, and then he came back to his house. But because Count Nodishty is so old, she can only swarm for, like, a couple hours, because that's how tight or how strong her tie to a bond is. Like, she can't leave her house. Lord Akodama can leave his house, but the queen cannot, like, step off her property, and she can only be without a home for, like, a couple hours. So without really, like, putting all that together, Alexia takes her to Wolsey Castle under full moon. So all the werewolves are there. Takes them there, invites them in, and in doing so, gives Wolsey Castle to the vampires. Because now that Countess Nodishty has swarmed and has, like, been invited into a place, she cannot swarm again. Like, she can't just decide to up and leave. It's like a internal instinct that she can't control. So she can't swarm again. She's stuck at that house. So they've essentially, like, booted the werewolves out because they can't live together. In doing so, in trying to get to the Wolsey Castle with the octopus on their tail, they release all the werewolves. And they come charging and attacking this giant octopus. And so they do use that as the diversion to get into Wolsey Castle. But in all this commotion of the werewolves fighting the octopus, them running away from the octopus destroying the house, Alexia has gone into labor. Alexia, and it's so funny how, like, this is happening. Like, her water breaks at one point. Like, she's been having contractions the whole time, and she's like, oh, you know, like, stop that. Like, talking to her baby. Like, stop that. Now's not the time. I've got things to do. And then when her water breaks, she's in the carriage with the vampires, and they're, like, sitting across from her because they don't want to be near her because she's a soul stealer. And they don't want to touch her. And her water breaks, and the vampires are like, are you okay? Like, please don't do that here. I don't want to touch that thing. Please keep it inside you. They have no, like, sympathy for this woman who is giving birth or, like, going into labor. And she's like, no, it's not happening. I won't allow it. It's like, okay, you can't really control that. Obviously the baby is coming. And so, like, for them to finally get the last bit of the way into the house, because Alexia can't move anymore, but they need her to get into Wolsey Castle because the Clavigers aren't going to let vampires in. They, like, have to, like, they rip off the top of the carriage. She sits on it, and they hold it. And they just, like, run with her sitting on top of it. And it's so funny. Finally, the sun starts to come up. The vampires are inside. The vampires are safe. They've officially ended their swarm. They own Wolsey Castle. Alexia doesn't realize that yet. The werewolves and the sun is starting to come up, so they're like, okay, the vampires are in the house. We're all good now. We gotta get them back inside, especially, like, the younger ones. Like Biffy and some of the younger ones who aren't used to the sun yet, and the sun can, like, burn them just as badly as, like, if it was a vampire outside. So even though, like, the older ones, like Lord Macon and Professor Lyle and things like that, they can hang out in the sun all day. But that's just because they're old. So they're like trying to get them all in, and they get all of them in except for Biffy. Biffy starts to burn, but Lord Macon is able to get him inside of the octopus. Madame LeFou, you know, is like, okay, yeah, we were just fighting, but I'll save him. So they get inside the octopus, so Biffy's not touching the light. Alexia is more hysterical about Biffy and worrying about him than like her actual giving birth. So she like trundles out there, and so that way she can hold on to Biffy to kind of like keep him from burning anymore with her preternatural touch. And it says they all hang out in the octopus, and 6 hours later Alexia has a baby. So yay, it's done. But that was just such a chaotic in a good way, chaotic like action scene of just, oh my goodness. Like the robotic octopus and Alexia giving birth in the robotic octopus is one of those memories that is like seared into my brain that I feel like even if I become like super old and like on my deathbed, I can't remember anything, I'm gonna remember that. I'm gonna be like, they were in the octopus. She gave birth in an octopus. Like, that's how seared into the little brain crevices that scene is. So they have a little girl, and Alexia's so excited that she's not repulsed by her baby. That was one thing she was kind of scared of because, you know, preternaturals can't share a room together. They can't share the same breath. They're just two opposite ends, or same end of the magnet. Whichever one's, like, you can't stick them together. Like, they just never can get too close. But she's not repulsed by her baby, so she's so happy with that. And they name her Prudence Alessandro Macon Akeldama. That's a mouthful. I think in the next series, which is the Custard Protocol series, follows their daughter, and I think she goes by Rue, which I think is really cute. So at first they think she's just a normal human baby, which they're happy with, you know. But then Lord Macon holds the baby, and she turns into a little tiny pup, like a little tiny dog. And Macon turns human. I think he turns human. I don't know. He might not. Yeah, I think he does turn human. I don't know if it specifically says it, but I'm pretty sure her power is like Prudence turns into the supernatural creature. But like, they get like a little tiny dog, little tiny puppy. And then at some point, Lord Akeldama will hold the baby, and we see that she becomes really pale and gets like little fangs. That's why it's called a skin snatcher. But everyone's happy. The werewolf pack is very sad that they have to leave. Alexia's super apologetic because she didn't realize that that's what was happening. She didn't put 2 and 2 together. But she is sorry, but there's nothing they can do now. So they already had the house in London, so that becomes their permanent residence. And they take over Madame LeFou's hat shop, with like the underneath part becoming the dungeons for them during full moons. Because the fix to Madame LeFou's issues is it's legally binding that Quinnell is the vampires, at least until he's an adult. So, and also to fix it and to also punish Madame LeFou for, you know, you shouldn't have done this. You shouldn't have rampaged all through London, destroying a bunch of stuff and trying to kill people in a giant octopus. She is going to be a drone for the remainder of the time that Quinnell is a child. So, until he's 16, which honestly, 16 is not an adult, still a child, but you know, we're in Victorian times. I'm so glad no one left me alone to just fend for myself at 16 or expected me to get married and let alone have children at 16. Like, Alexia is considered old and a spinster, and she's my age, and I'm just now feeling like an adult. I'm almost 30, and I'm just now feeling like I'm getting the hang of things. And I'm having like a stable ground for me to possibly, even if I wanted to have kids, for me to possibly have kids. Oh my goodness. These Victorians, it's just crazy. They essentially get everything sorted out. It all folds together in a nice, happy bow, and it all works out. And Madame LeFou is not like, she's offended that Alexia took the side of the vampires, but also like understands, like, she is the Mooger and like it's part of her job, and so, you know, there's no like actual bad blood between them, especially since Madame LeFou is the one who had to help birth the baby or deliver the baby. That's the proper way of saying it. Help deliver the baby, because it's just Alexia, Madame LeFou, Lord Macon, and an unconscious Biffy in the giant octopus. I enjoy this story, and I wish I could have like read this and talked you through it in different moments, because I'm sure I missed a lot of like the smaller details in talking to you through like this, but I'm also not gonna force myself to film whenever I'm crying a whole bunch. Yeah, it's just, you know, I think it's fine, even if like this book may suffer in the spoilery review part of the video. It's more important that I am okay with myself and like my real life than a video, if that makes sense. So we have one more book, Timeless, and then we'll be done. Oh my goodness. I've really enjoyed hanging out with Alexia and Lord Macon again, and I just can't believe we've already done 4 books and we only have one more. Well, I guess without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the last book. Okay, so I finished Timeless. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that a second time. We're about like an hour into Timeless, and it skips a few years. So they, from the top, mention that Lord Macon and Alexia have been married for 3 years. And so that means that the infant inconvenience, aka Prudence, is now like 2 or 3, depending on how long they had been married before they got pregnant, but like 2 or 3. And I love this opening scene. I don't even know if this is going to be good with your cooking endeavors. And I think Gail Carriger does an amazing job with like opening scenes, like just instantly throwing you into the world, but also like giving you a rundown of how powers work without it feeling like an info dump. And that's what we get with Prudence. So Alexia and Lord Macon are getting ready to go to a play that is being done by Mr. and Mrs. Tunstall, or Miss Hisselpenny and Tunstall, and it's bath night for the toddler. And they're like, we need your help, Alexia. The toddler's gone out of control with bath night, because, you know, no toddler enjoys bath time. And so they go there, and we're able to see Prudence's powers in action. She has touched Lord Aquadama, and now she has all of his abilities as a vampire, has the fangs, has the pale skin, has the super strength and super speed, and Lord Akeldama is just straight up human, as much as he can be. And so she's zip-zopping around, avoiding the bath, and you have all these drones and Lord Akeldama trying to chase her. So finally, Alexia comes in. Prudence sees her mom and is like so excited to see her mom. So runs to her mom, and Alexia picks her up, and as soon as she does, she is now just a little girl again, and Lord Akeldama has all his vampireness again. And it explains that if Alexia hadn't touched Prudence, then Prudence would stay vampire-like until dawn, or the next day. And so that means Lord Akeldama would be human for an entire day. So there is a time limit, just in case for some reason there wasn't a preternatural around to counteract her powers. She would eventually become human again. So it's really fun to see. And then at the play, we also see Madame LeFou and Alexia interact. And apparently their relationship isn't awful, but it's not the same as it was, which makes sense because they were on opposite sides of the very last book, and Alexia kind of forced Madame LeFou into vampire servitude, which Madame LeFou never really wanted. Alexia has been called, not by Count Nadeshti, but someone else has given Count Nadeshti the memo to get Alexia. So we're fixing to go see who that is. Oh, and Sete has popped up. Don't know why she's here, but she's popped up as well. We're still at the beginning of the book, but Gail Carriger just does such a good job of opening up the story and like giving us all we need to know.
Mowgli. Hi. Oh, now he's gonna lay on top of me. Okay. You can't see it, but there you go. You comfy now? Good boy. Okay. So we've now figured out who sent the secret missive to Alexia through Countess Nadeshti. It is, I can't remember her name, but apparently it's like the oldest vampire ever. And this old vampire is in Egypt, which I don't know if I talked about earlier, but in past books, they talked about Egypt being essentially how in the second book, there were just no supernaturals because of the mummies. And it just became a god breaker area, you know? So most supernaturals don't hang out near Egypt, but the oldest vampire does, and this old vampire wants to meet Rue. So they're heading off there, but they can't let anyone know why they're headed to Egypt. So Miss Hisselpenny and Tunstall and their 2 kids, I don't think I said it, but they got pregnant in the last book. So their kids are like a year younger than Prudence, but it's twins. So we have them and then their entire theater troupe coming along to be like, hey, we're gonna go perform this play that we've just done for a bunch of other people, and it just so happens those people are in Egypt. So that's their like cover story of how they're gonna get to Egypt without just flat out saying, hey, we're going to Egypt to meet the oldest vampire alive. But also what's happened in Egypt is Duve, the beta from the Scotland pack, was like missing. He was sent to Egypt and then like just didn't show up again. He finally did show up,
When he did, he was trying to give Alexia a warning, but then he was shot and killed. Because he had been human for so long, he was like weak or something like that. I don't know. It doesn't fully make sense, but we essentially need another reason for like Lord Macan. Lord Macan is going to Egypt now with them. One, he's like, I'm not going to let you go into the oldest hive around just by yourself. But also, we got to figure out what Duve figured out. Because obviously people don't want us to know. So they just got a whole group, and the vampires are like, you know, we need someone to like watch you and chaperone you, so we're gonna send a drone with you because they can't go themselves. And so that's how we're getting Madame LeFou on the trip as well. So it's like a whole gaggle of people. Huge group. Just all going to Egypt. We're starting to see more of like Biffy like being super comfortable in his environment as he runs the hat shop and he like gets gossip for people, and he's finding his place in the pack, which makes me really happy. As well as we're seeing like Lord Akeldama really like love being a dad, which is so cute. Prudence is adorable. Lord Akeldama is like, he's not going out as much. He's just hanging out at the house because he's like, you know, I've been alive for so long. There's not many things that can surprise me and be new experiences for me anymore. But like this little girl, it's just more fun to be with her and to experience all these new things with her being her adopted dad. So it's so cute. I kind of feel bad, and I wish he could go along with them to Egypt because they are taking Prudence with them to Egypt. So it'll be like, you know, however long that he's just, you know, without her. So I do feel bad on that part, but he can't. He's a vampire, and while he has some bigger places he can travel, he still is a vampire, and all vampires have a tether of some sort. They did find out that Rue has a tether, like whenever she takes the powers from like a vampire or a werewolf, if she gets too far away from them, it'll like essentially snap back to them. So she like stole the powers from like her dad and then like ran away from him, and then but it was like outside, so she could like just keep going, and like she got far enough away and it just like snapped back to him, which was very interesting. So I guess if she accidentally took it from like someone, they wouldn't have to wait until morning. They could just like run far away from each other and get it back that way. Okay, so I am 50% of the way through Timeless, and we've officially landed in Egypt, and they're being escorted by a vampire to their lodgings. Not much has happened on the ship, but a lot has happened off the ship back home with Site, Lyle and Biffy and things like that. So at the end of the last book, we figured out who actually orchestrated the attempted murder of the Queen of England. And while it was the Scotland pack, Professor Lyle kind of manipulated and like planted the idea in their head because he needed Lord Macan to come challenge his alpha to hopefully kill him, because it's not said explicitly what happened, but it's described that he's telling people, and it's like awful, brutal, humiliating, like it is like atrocities that the previous alpha put his beta Lyle through. So Alexia's sister, who knew about this but was keeping quiet, finds out Site is here, tells her about what happened,
even though, like, Alexia had promised Lyle, he was like, you know, she was like, you know, I'm not gonna tell your secret. I don't like keeping a secret from Connell, but I'll do it. And, you know, her sister is doing it because she's bitter and angry that she's not married and her sister's married, and she views herself better than her sister, and her sister's life has just turned out kind of how she wanted her life to be, you know, married, higher up in society, well off, you know, living the Victorian dream. So her sister is just an awful, bitter, evil human. Ugh. So she does it out of spite, and Site, when she finds out, she goes and just starts beating up, like, as a werewolf, beating up on Lyle. Lyle's fighting back. He's holding his own, but obviously he's not an alpha, and so he will tire out. So Biffy joins the fight, and they, like, fight each other. All three of them fight for, like, until the sun comes up, and the sun coming up forces them back to change into human. And then they kind of talk it out, and Lyle says that he's gonna, like, he's ready to pay reparations by becoming the beta for the Scotland pack because they just lost their beta. And he essentially, you know, started all this with them. So he's like, you know, that's what I'm willing to do. And Site agrees to that and is like, you know, you can stay our beta until we find someone better, and then it'll be fine. But after that, Biffy and Lyle start getting really comfy cozy together, comforting each other, really soft and gentle with each other, just kind of sparking a small romance. And both of them are kind of lamenting that, like, they're just now kind of finding this within each other whenever Lyle has to go away, because he can't be Connell's beta after Connell finds out, because Connell was first betrayed by his beta in the Scotland pack, which is why he killed his beta and left. But then he's gonna find out that his new beta is the one that orchestrated that, so he was then betrayed by his beta again. And because Lyle and Biffy are comfy cozy with each other, Biffy does not get out a letter in time to Alexia to warn her that a message for Connell is on its way, to let him know and to essentially warn her that the secret is gonna come out. So, ugh. So that's fun. We also get a little scene where we find out that water can kind of essentially turn off Alexia's abilities. She falls overboard and Connell goes to save her in wolf form, and then when he touches her while they're in the water, he stays wolf. He doesn't turn human. And they kind of use that to kind of explain why the radius for the mummy in Scotland was so much smaller than it was in England. I didn't think of that the first time I read it, and I didn't think about it this time, that, like, yeah, the radiuses weren't the same. In London, it affected all of London, and then in Scotland, it seemed like it only affected that pack, so the radius was much smaller. And they were like, oh, it's because it was raining all the time, and there was water and moisture in the air, which would then make sense why, like, all of Egypt, this huge area, has this, because they have mummies, and also it's a super dry, humid, deserty climate. So, like, it makes sense. But I just never thought of that before. Gail Carriger over here fixing plot holes that I didn't even realize were plot holes.
Ugh. I hate to report this, but Lord Macon is dead. Or at least that's what we think. I can't imagine I don't remember him actually dying, and I can't imagine this being the end for him, but he's been shot while in Egypt, so, you know, he's mortal, and they had to leave him behind because they were being chased and attacked. So sad. Oh. And, like, we thought Alexia, like, broke down and, like, lost herself whenever he didn't accept that it was his baby and sent her away. But, like, this is so much worse. So we found the epicenter of the Godbreaker plague. And it's just a bunch of mummified body parts spread out in the shape of an octopus. And we think, or at least the speculation with Alexia and Madame LeFou is that, like, the oldest vampire started this so that way she could be the only one, but then the Templars and Alexia's dad got a hold of the information and started spreading it to where it's just like it's gonna be like a permanent, super large, you know, supernatural extermination mission. And we also kind of find out that, like, Flute has been keeping up the promises and, like, the mission that his original boss, Alexia's dad, he's the one that shot Duve, and he's just kind of been trying to exterminate supernaturals this entire time, which is so sad, you know? Like, I don't want to be against Flute. I mean, I don't think I've talked much about him here, but, like, he's a steady presence within all the books. He's kind of funny because he just keeps, like, he's very Butler-like. Very, like, short. Very much so doesn't say much. Very prim and proper. But, like, his facial expressions. He lets you know exactly what he's thinking, even if he's not going to say it with his face. So, I don't know. It's just kind of sad. One, to learn about Flute. And two, right now we're just in the middle of Lord Macan not being here. Oh. I was so focused on Lord Macan that I forgot a baby got kidnapped. Miss Hesselpenning's baby got kidnapped. I'm assuming the people thought they were kidnapping Prudence, but they didn't. They kidnapped the other baby, and now they've told Alexia, hey, if you want the baby, come alone here. So a lot of stuff is happening. Very high stakes. Just fitting, since it is the last book, but it's also, like, quite nerve-wracking.
So I've finished the book, and Lord Macan is still dead. I'm just kidding. He came in full Brindle Wolf, and Flute, of all people, was riding on top of him. They flew through a window. I would like to see that in, like, a movie scene, because that just sounds hilarious. So Lord Macan's not dead. Flute saved him, nursed him back to health, but those people that had, like, were protecting the body parts and tried to take Lord Macan out, those were Flute's people. So, you know, he did come in and save Lord Macan, and he helped Alexia and them finish their task, but then he did skedaddle away, never to be seen again. A little disappointing, but also so funny that he came in on the back of the werewolf. It was confirmed that the Vampire Queen, she was the one that started it up. First, she started it up the first time to get the werewolves out, so it was just her. And then she started it up again so that way it would reach her and she could go out her own way. And that's actually why they brought the baby and Alexia because they could sneak in Prudence, so that way the vampire queen could go out on her own without all the other vampires realizing, because, you know, they'd do everything in their power to stop their queen from dying. So, but in the end, they succeed. Alexia originally went by herself to get the baby, and she was just so unfeeling, so like robotic and just like numb. And she's just like, if I die, I die, you know? But Madame LeFou and the entire theater troupe come in to help and hopefully keep Alexia alive. But in doing so, Miss Hisselpenny gets hurt from a bunch of vampire bites. And so they're like, hey, you know, what if we try to get you another queen? You know, what if we do that? And the vampires are like, okay, yeah, that's cool. So they make Hepcheta a vampire again, so her makers can come out, and they succeed. Miss Hisselpenny is now a vampire, but she has kids and a husband, which is normally frowned upon. You know, no kids. It just tangles things, makes things complicated. But she does. And Miss Hisselpenny's like, do I have to stay here? And they're like, no, you have like a couple months to swarm and land in a spot before you're like stuck there. She's like, okay, then I'm going back to London. I don't want to stay here. So now we have a new queen in London, and the vampires are the ones who are kind of in charge of like leading the fashion. So the fashion is going to be going towards ugly, ugly hats, which is hilarious. But it all worked out. Everything was tied into a nice little bow, and Lord Macon has decided, like, he bought some property in Cairo, and they've decided that after their daughter's grown up, they're gonna retire in Cairo in the Godbreaker plague zone, so that way they can grow old together. So sweet. So cute. I don't know. This book just wraps everything up so nicely. Such cute little bows on all the different plot lines, all the different stories. It's like such a nice ending to a series. So it sets things up quite well for the Custard Protocol series, which is Prudence's adventures. But it doesn't leave anything where you're like, oh, I have to read that now. No, it like ties everything up. It just like, you know, sets some nice groundwork. And it's, this series is so good. It's been so much fun reading it again. And to think the only reason I picked up the first book for the very first time was because the title was Soulless, and I just thought it was funny because, you know, oftentimes people say people with red hair don't have souls. So I just thought it was funny. When I bought it, we were already picking up books that we had never read before to just kind of find some new stuff. And who'd have thought that I would have found my favorite series of all time in just a random used bookstore. So hopefully you read this with me. We buddy read it together, hopefully. But if you haven't and you've watched all of this, you kind of know everything that goes on, but I would still encourage you to read it because the writing and just a bunch of other different interactions, like little interactions that happen that are so good that I can't tell you literally everything. I just kind of hit the highlights. It's so good. Even if you've now been spoiled for the entire thing, I still think you should read it and just have a grand old time. Also, if you want to and you want more of it, you got the Finishing School series, which is with Madame LeFou and Cité when they were like younger. They're not the main character, but they're on the ensemble cast there. Or if you want to continue this way, you got Prudence and her friends running around doing stuff. You can just continue on in the Parasol Protectorate universe. I guess we're done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any other book series that are similar to this series, that you're like, if you love that, you'll definitely love this one, please leave them down below. I will happily read them all. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you are having a fantastically whimsical day, and if not, hopefully this video made your day just a little bit better. Thank you for watching this entire thing. I'm sure it's so incredibly long. I haven't edited it yet, but I'm sure it's long. So thank you so much for that. Greatly appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!